his wife for intercourse, Kashyap Muni said, "You are so dear to me. I will definitely satisfy your sex desire for the sake of begetting children. But you must wait for few minutes." Now at this time, Lord Shiva, along with his companions, like horrible looking ghosts, and are prowling around. This particular time is most auspicious. Please, this particular time is most inauspicious. Please wait for some time. I fulfill your desire as soon as this inauspicious time passes. But at that time, Diti, being impelled by destiny, was very much afflicted by sex desire and was not ready to wait for a moment. Kashyap Muni was obliged to perform the forbidden act, and thus, after offering his obeisances unto his worshipable fate, he lay with her in a secluded place. Afterwards, he purified himself, following due process of taking bath and meditating upon the eternal effulgence, chanting the holy Gayatri mantra. During that time, Lord Shiva was wandering with his associates. Any sexual intercourse is prohibited at that time. The act of Kashyap Muni associating with Diti was a great offense towards Shiva. Diti was very afraid that her embryo may be killed by Lord Shiva. She offered her obeisance to Lord Shiva and prayed to him to be excused. Kashyap Muni could understand that Diti's mind was polluted, that she had neglected the direction given by her husband, and that she was apathetic to the demigods. All these indications were very inauspicious. He said to Diti, "You will have two impetuous sons born of your condemned womb. Unlucky women, they will cause constant lamentation to all the three worlds. They will kill poor, faultless, living entities, torture women, and enrage the great souls. At that time, the Lord of the universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the well-wisher of all living entities, will descend and kill them." Diti said, "It is very good that my sons will be magnanimously killed by the arms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with his Sudarshan weapon. O my husband, may they never be killed by the wrath of Brahman devotees." Kashyap Muni informed Diti that because of her lamentation, penitence, and proper deliberation, her unflinching faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead and adoration for Shiva and her husband, one of the sons of Hiranyakashipu, Prahlad, will be a great devotee of Lord Hari. Kashyap Muni glorified the great qualities of Prahlad Maharaj. Hearing that her grandson would be a great devotee and that her sons would be killed by Krishna, Diti felt pleasure in her mind. Understanding that the sons within her womb would be a cause of disturbance to the demigods, she continuously bore the powerful sermon of Kashyap Muni for 100 years. While Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha were in the womb of Diti, all kinds of inauspicious symptoms manifested. By the force of pregnancy of Diti, the light of the sun and moon was impaired in all the planets, and the demigods of various planets felt greatly disturbed by great force. They all approached Brahma and offered their prayers, glorifying Lord Brahma. Then they asked him, "What is this expansion of darkness in all directions?" On the birth of two demons, there were many natural disturbances, all very fearful and wonderful in the heavenly planets, the earthly planets, and in between. There are earthquakes along the mountains on the earth, and it appeared that there were fire everywhere. Many inauspicious planets like Triton appeared, along with comets, meteors, and thunderbolts. There blew winds which were most uninviting to the touch, hissing again and again and uprooting gigantic trees. They had storms for their armies and clouds of dust for their ensigns. The luminaries in heavens are screened by the masses of clouds, in which lightning sometimes flashed as though laughing. Darkness reigned everywhere, and nothing could be seen. The ocean, with its high waves, wailed aloud as if stricken with sorrow, and there were commotion among the creatures inhabiting the ocean. The rivers and lakes were also agitated, and lotuses withered. Misty halos appeared around the sun and the moon during solar and lunar eclipses again and again. Claps of thunder were heard even without clouds, and sound like those of rattling chariots emerged from the mountain caves. In the interior of the villages, sea jackals yelled potentially, vomiting strong fire from their mouths, and jackals and also joined them with their cries. Raising their necks, dogs cried here and there, sometimes in the manner of singing and sometimes wailing. The asses ran hither and thither in herds, striking the earth with their hard hoofs and wildly braying. Frightened by the braying of the asses, birds flew, shrieking, from their nets, while cattle in the cow sheds as well as in the woods passed dung and urine. Cows terrified yield blood in a place of milk. Clouds Clouds rain burst. The images of the gods in the temple shed tears, and trees fell down without a blast of wind. Ominous planets such as Mars and Saturn shone brighter and surpassed the auspicious planets such as Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus, as well as a number of lunar mansions. Taking seemingly retrograde courses, the planets came in conflict with one another. Seeing all this and many other omens of evil times, everybody was afraid. They could not understand the secrets of these portents and thought that the dissolution of the universe may take place soon. As soon as these two demons appeared in this material world, they began to exhibit uncommon bodily features. They had steel-like frames which began to grow just like two great mountains. Their bodies became so tall that they seemed to kiss the sky with the crest of their gold crowns. They blocked the view of all directions, and while walking, the earth shook at every step. Their arms were adorned with brilliant bracelets, and they stood as if covering the sun with their breasts, which were bound with beautiful girdles. Kashyap Muni gave his twin sons their names. The one who was born first he named Hiranyaksha, and one who was first conceived by Diti he named Hiranyakashipu. Some say Hiranyakashipu is the elder twin, and some say it is Hiranyaksha. Srila Prabhupada explains very nicely that the Vedic literature, Pinda Siddhi, gives us a scientific understanding of this. Hiranyakashipu was conceived first, thus he is the elder brother. Hiranyaksha was born first from the womb of Diti, so he is also known as the elder. In this way, Srimad Bhagavatam concludes that Hiranyakashipu is the elder brother. Chapter 5. Hiranyakashipu's revenge from Hiranyaksha's death. When Lord Vishnu, in the form of Braha, the god, killed Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu was extremely angry and began to lament. Upon hearing of his brother's death at the hands of Brahadev, Hiranyakashipu becomes enraged. Beating his lips, he gazed at the sky with blazing anger that filled the sky with smoke. He was looking so terrible with his fearsome teeth, fierce glance, and frowned eyebrows. He picked up his trident weapon and with great anger he spoke to the assembled demons who were his associates. These demigods are the cause of my brother's death. Lord Vishnu is supposed to be equal to everyone, whether they are demons or demigods. But being devotedly worshipped by demigods, he has taken their side and has killed my dear brother. Being influenced by Maya, he has assumed the form of a boar to please his devotees. The demigod, just as a restless child leans towards someone who pleases him, he is after pleasing this demigod. I promise that I will sever the head of Lord Vishnu, and with the profuse blood flowing from his body, I will therefore please my brother Hiranyaksha, who was very fond of drinking blood. Then only will I find peace of mind. When Vishnu dies, the demigods will also be finished, as Vishnu is their life and soul. Now listen carefully. When I am engaged in killing Vishnu, all of you must go all over the earthly planet and destroy Brahmanical culture. Destroy all people who are engaged in austerity, sacrifice, Vedic study, following regulatory vows, and giving in charity. Lord Vishnu is the personification of all sacrificial and ritualistic ceremonies. People satisfy Lord Vishnu through Brahmanical culture. He is the center of Devas, Pitri Purusha, and every living entity. Go and kill all the Brahmanas. When the Brahmanas are killed, no one will exist to encourage the Kshatriyas to perform yajnas. And thus the demigods, not being appeased by yajna, will automatically die. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport of these verse, since Vishnu is the central point of Brahmanical culture, Hiranyakashipu's plan was to kill Vishnu. For if Vishnu were killed, naturally the Brahmanical culture would also be lost. With Brahmanical culture lost, Yajna would no longer be performed. And for want of Yajna, the regular distribution of rainfall would cease. Thus, there would be disturbances all over the world, and naturally, the demigods would be defeated. Hiranyakashipu continued, I order you to go and set fire to those places where are protected and Brahmanas are engaged in studying the Vedas. Cut down all the trees, which are the source of life. By nature, demons are fond of notorious activities. They always feel itching in their palms and are ready to engage in the work of destruction. As soon as they heard the order of Hiranyakashipu, they accepted it on their head and set forth to torment all people. They set fires to the cities, villages, pasturing grounds, gardens, agricultural fields, and natural forests. They burned the hermitages of the saintly persons, the important mines, and that produced valuable metals, the residential quarters for the agriculturists, the mountain villages, and the villages of the cow protectors, the cowherd man. They also burned the government capitals. Some of the demons took digging instruments and broke down the bridges, the protective walls, and the gates, gopuras of the cities. Some took axes and began cutting the important trees that produced mango, jackfruit, and other sources of fruit. Some of the demons took firebrands and set fire to the residential quarters of the citizens. Being harassed by like this again and again, people stopped their activities of Vedic culture. Yajna was stopped. The demigods were very disturbed because of not receiving the results of yajnas. The demigods left their houses in heaven and come down to earth. They wandered about to see the disasters caused by the followers of Hiranyakashipu. Chapter 6. Hiranyakashipu pacifies his family members. After ordering the demons and engaging them in destructive activities, Hiranyakashipu came to the place where his brother Hiranyaksha body lay, surrounded by relatives who were crying to see the death of Hiranyaksha. Though Hiranyakashipu was very angry, still he was a great politician and knew how to act according to time and place. He controlled his anger and began to pacify his relatives and family members with very sweet words. Hiranyakashipu told them not to lament, as the death of a great hero in battle in front of enemies is a glorious death and one always desired. Hiranyakashipu told them, just like people gather in a restaurant to eat and drink, and after they finish their eating and drinking, they leave the restaurant and go to their respective desired places. In the same way, living entities gather in some family, and then according to the result of their karma, they proceed towards their destinations. The soul knows no death, because soul is eternal and imperishable. The soul can go anywhere, either in the material world or in the spiritual world, due to being free from material contamination. The soul is full of knowledge and completely different from the material body. But because the soul has misused his limited independence, he has been compelled to accept his gross and subtle body, which manifests from material nature. Because of this, he has to enjoy so-called happiness and distress. That is why one should not lament for the soul when it leaves the body. There is a tree on the bank of a water reservoir. Whenever there is movement of the water, the reflections of the tree also move. In reality, the reflection of the tree is not moving, but it appears to be so. Whenever someone's eyes move by mental derangements, he feels that the land is moving. In the same way, when the mind becomes agitated by the three modes of material nature, at that time, even if the soul is completely separate from gross and subtle bodies, still he thinks he is changing from one condition to another. This happens because he is identifying the self with the body due to ignorance. In the state of bewilderment, the living entity thinks his body and mind as a self-soul. He considers some people as his own kinsmen and some as outsiders. Because of these concocted ideas, he suffers. In reality, this kind of mentality of the living entity is the cause of his enjoyment and suffering in this material world. As a result of this misconception, the conditioned soul has to take birth in different bodies and works in various types of consciousness. Due to this situation, he must accept new bodies. This kind of continued material life is known as samsara. Because of this samsara, birth, death, lamentation, bewilderment, and anxiety arise. In this way, Due to lack of proper vivek or proper understanding, we fall into the darkness of ignorance. Srila Prabhupada writes in his purpose, all the living entities in this material world have come here only because they wanted to be equal to Krishna in enjoyment and have thus been sent here to be conditioned by material nature in different degrees. In the material world, a so-called family is a combination of several persons in one home to fulfill the terms of their imprisonment. As criminal prisoners scatter as soon as their terms are over and they are released. All of us who have temporarily assembled as family members will continue to our respective destinations. Another example is given is that family members are like straws carried together by the waves of a river. Sometimes such straws mix together in whirlpools and later dispersed again by the same waves. They float along in the water. We see here that Hiranyakashipu has perfect knowledge of the self, but in spite of this knowledge of Shastra, he is known as a demon. This is because whatever spiritual knowledge one might have, if he is not a devotee of Krishna, then this knowledge is useless. Srila Prabhupada writes, Hiranyakashipu had clear knowledge of the spirit soul and the subtle and gross bodies, but now we are so degraded that everyone, including the exalted scientists, philosophers, and other leaders, is under the bodily conception of life, which is condemned in the Shastras. Such persons are nothing but cows and asses. Hiranyakashipu advised his family members that although the gross body of his brother Hiranyaksha was dead, and they were aggrieved because of this, they should not lament for the great soul of Hiranyaksha, who had already attained his next destination. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, all the demigods and their exalted qualities such as religion, knowledge and renunciation become manifest in the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudev. On the other hand, a person devoid of devotional service and engaged in material activities has no good qualities. Even if he is adept at the practice of mystic yoga or the honest endeavor of maintaining his family and relatives, he must be driven by his own mental speculations and must engage in the service of the Lord's external energy. How can there be any good quality in such a man? Although Hiranyakashipu knew Shastra, still he did not know no, abandon all varieties of religion just surrender unto me. To make his philosophical points more clear to his relatives and family members, Hiranyakashipu described a tale of Yamraj conversation with the close relatives of a king who had died on the battlefield. Hiranyakashipu spoke as follows: Once upon a time, there was a king named Suyagya, ruling over a state called Usinara. This king once unfortunately died on the battlefield. His kinsmen gathered around his body and started to cry. The king's wives were crying and saying, "Oh Lord, now that you have been killed, we also have been killed." While lamenting this way, the wives were beating their chests and falling at the feet of the king. They cried, "O Lord, cruel providence has taken you from our side. Previously, you are maintaining the citizen of Usinara by probing their livelihood. In this way, they were all happy, but your condition has now become the cause of their lamentation. O king, O hero, you were our very grateful husband and most sincere friend. How can we survive without you? O hero, please allow us to follow you. Wherever you are going, we will serve your lotus feet there. Please take us with you." The time had come to burn the dead body, but the queens in their lamentation kept the dead body on their laps. The sun in due course set in the west. Still the queens kept the dead body of their husband on their laps and would not allow the body to be burned. Srila Prabhupada comments that the wives apparently did not want the body of their husband, the king, to be burned, as they were afraid. They were afraid they too would have to burn, as this was the custom in ancient times. Hiranyakashipu continued a tale of to his relatives. The queens were crying so loudly that the sound was heard in the Yamlok by Yamraj. In the disguise of a boy, Yamraj came to the site where King Swagya's dead body lay. Yamraj began to pacify the relatives of the king by elaborately explaining death and lamentation from a philosophical point of view. Yamraj said, "Alas, how strange it is that although these bodies are my elders and should know very well that hundreds and thousands of living entities are taking birth and dying, still their poor fund of knowledge is causing them such grief. They should understand that they will also die one day, but still they are covered by illusion. The conditioned soul comes from some unknown place, and after that goes back to some unknown place. There is no exception into this nature. Even if these ladies know this very well, why then they are lamenting uselessly? It is surprising to see that all these elderly ladies are not applying the knowledge of Shastra. Of course, we are very fortunate because even if we are helpless child being rejected by our parents, still we are not eaten by ferocious animals like tigers. Yamraj, in his form of a young boy, told the ladies, all ladies, this entire universe is created, maintained, and annihilated by the desire of Parameshwara, Bhagwan. This is the verdict of the Vedas. This movable and non-movable world is like his toy. He is the supreme controller. That is why he is fully capable of both creation and annihilation. If at some time one loses his wealth, even if that wealth is lying in the street, still due to good fortune, it remains there. No one can see it. In this way, the wealth is returned to him who lost it. On the other hand, without the Lord's protection, and despite being kept safely, one's wealth may be lost. By the Lord's protection, even in the forest, helpless people also remain alive, while inside the house, surrounded and protected by relatives, people die. Each and every conditioned living entity receives a different kind of body according to his karma. When that karma is consumed, the body is destroyed. Even if the soul is situated within this gross and subtle body, still the dharma of the soul is different from the body. Just like the master of the house, even if away from his house, still he thinks himself not different from his house, and thus always identifies himself with his house. In this way, the conditioned soul, due to his ignorance, accepts his body as his self. Though in reality, the soul is different from the body. The living entity receives a body of earth, water, and fire. When the transformation of that earth, water, and fire takes place, the body is destroyed. There is no relation to the soul within creation and destruction of the body. In the same way, even if fire is present in wood, still it is different from wood. Air is present inside the mouth and nose, but they are different from body. The sky is all pervading, but still it does not mix with anything else. In the same way, the soul, which is in this material world, is the source of this body and different from the body. Hiranyakashipu spoke these words, these wise words to his relatives, continuing the story of Sujana families. You are so foolish. The person by the name Sujana, for whom you all are crying, is sleeping in front of all of you. Why are all of you crying? Because he used to hear you and answer you, but now you are lamenting his silence. This behavior is not proper. You have been never seen that soul within the body that formerly would hear and answer you. There is no reason for you to lament. The most important aspect of this body is the life air. But still, that life air is also neither the hearer nor non-speaker. Even greater than the life air is the soul. But still, that soul also cannot do anything independently. Because the super soul, Paramatma, is the real director who cooperates with the soul. That Paramatma who administers the activities of the body is different for the body and life airs. Different parts of the gross body and subtle body are built by the combination of Panch Bhuta, 5 gross elements, 10 senses, and the mind. So the soul comes into contact with high class and low class body, and afterwards rejects those by his own energy. One can understand this power, the ability of the living entity to accept different kinds of body. As long as the subtle body, consisting of mind, intelligence, and false ego, he will remain in bondage of fruitive activities or sakam karma. Because of this covering, the soul remains in contact with material nature, and life after life suffers out of ignorance, of mistaking things. Because of this covering, the soul remains in contact with material nature, and life after life suffers out of ignorance or mistakenly thinking this body is the self. It is fruitless to describe the modes of material nature and how so-called pleasure and suffering arise from the modes of material nature as factual. During the waking period, when the mind wanders and the main thinks himself very important, or during the night, the sleeping period, he feels as if he is enjoying with a beautiful lady. Both are simply dreams. In the same way, sensual pleasure and suffering should be understood as meaningless. Self-realized people never lament, understanding well that the soul is eternal and the body is temporary. But those who do not have knowledge about the self, it is their nature to lament. That is why it is very difficult to give knowledge to bewildered people. Hiranyakashipu continued. In the course of this description, Yamraj gave an example of the Kulinga words as follows. Yamraj said, once upon a time there was a hunter who would catch birds in his net, alluring them by giving food. He was like that personified, engaged as a bird catcher. That hunter, while roaming around in the forest, saw one pair of Kulinga birds. The female bird, being allured by the hunter, was caught in the next net. The male Kulinga bird felt sad to see how his wife had been put into great danger by the will of destiny. That helpless male bird, being unable to release his mate, began to weep out of affection towards her. The male bird said, alas, Providence is so cruel. My wife, being helpless, is lamenting for me in this awkward situation. What benefit will Providence get by taking away this poor bird? That helpless male bird, being unable to release his mate, began to weep out of affection towards her. The male bird said, alas, Providence is so cruel. My wife, being helpless, is lamenting for me in this awkward situation. What benefit will Providence get by taking away this poor bird? If this merciless Providence has taken away my wife, who is like my other half, then why is he not taking me also? What shall I gain by living with half of my body, being burned by full of sorrow due to separation from my wife? Unfortunate baby birds, deprived of their mother, are waiting in the nest, expecting their mother to give them food. Those birds have not yet developed their wings. How shall I take care of them? Thus the male bird was crying and with tearful eyes due to separation from his wife. Just at that moment, being sent by Kal or time, the hunter killed the Kulinga bird by shooting an arrow from a hidden place. Yamraj continued, all of you are so foolish that you do not see your own death due to ignorance. You do not understand that even if you lament for the next 100 years, still you will never get him back. And in the meantime, your lifespan will end. All the queens of King Sujana were surprised to hear this kind of philosophical explanation. They all realized that in this material world, everything is temporary, nothing will remain eternally. After giving this advice to the wives of King Yamraj, who had come there in the form of boy, disappeared from that place. After that, the relatives of the king performed the ritualistic ceremonies for him. After hearing these words from Hiranyakashipu, his mother and wife of his brother Rusabhanu forgot their grief due to death of Hiranyaksha and concentrated upon the real philosophy of life. Chapter 7. Hiranyakashipu attains the perfection of his tapasya. After contemplating the last rites of his brother, Hiranyakashipu contemplated how to take revenge on Vishnu. His plan was to conquer everyone and to be king of the entire universe, including Brahmalok. He wanted to attain all siddhis like Anima and Lagima, so on, and to become free from old age and death. Hiranyakashipu proceeded towards Mandara Hill to perform austerities. There he started his austerity by standing on his toes, raising his arms upward and looking at the skies. In this way, he engaged in severe austerity for many thousands of years. By the power of his austerity, from his body emanated both effulgent light and heat equal to the sun's rays at that time of the universal desolation. Fire and smoke came out of his head and spread throughout the sky, hitting the upper and lower planetary systems. All the rivers and oceans were agitated. The entire earth, including mountains and islands, started to shake. Stars and planets fell from their respective positions. Being tortured by the effect of the several penance of Hiranyakashipu, demigods left their planet and traveled to Brahmalok. There they informed Lord Brahma of the dangerous situation the earth was in. The Deva said to Brahma, by the power of the penancy performed by Hiranyakashipu, everything will be destroyed. Please do something to stop this disaster. Hiranyakashipu is planning to take over your position. He is going through this severe austerity with the understanding that the soul, the time are eternal, that he is not this body but spirit soul. Thus he will perform this austerity for many births and will one day be the controller of the entire universe. O Brahma, you are the chief of this universe. Please take the necessary action to resolve this problem. After hearing the pleas of demigods, Lord Brahma immediately left Brahmalok along with other rishis like Bhrigu and Daksha on his swan carrier and went to the place where Hiranyakashipu was performing his tapasya. After reaching Mandara hill, Brahma was unable to see Hiranyakashipu as he was covered by an ant hill, grass and bamboo sticks. Except for the bones, ants and devoured Hiranyakashipu's entire body, but still he was holding the life airs within his body through the yoga process. Lord Brahma could see the radiant effulgence around the ant hill and thus understood that this was where the demon king was sitting and performing his tapasya. Brahma was struck with wonder at the extent of Hiranyakashipu's austerities and said to him, O son of Kashyap Muni, please get up. Let there will be all auspiciousness unto you. You have received perfection in your tapasya. I have come to offer you your boon. Now you may ask any boon from me according to your desire, and I will try to fulfill that desire. I am surprised to see your great strength. Even though your body has been eaten by ants and worms, still you are holding your life airs within your bones. This is a great wonder. No one before you, including sages like Bhrigu, have performed tapasya like this before. No one in the future can equal your tapasya. How is it possible for anyone in this universe to survive for 100 celestial years without even a drop of water? You have conquered me by your great tapasya. Now ask any boon from me. Brahma then took his kamandalu and sprinkled transcendental water upon the bones of Hiranyakashipu. By the power of that spiritual water, Hiranyakashipu was rejuvenated. He emerged from the ant hill like fire comes from wood, with a youthful form as strong as thunderbolt, full of strength and effulgent like molten gold. Hiranyakashipu was very pleased to see Lord Brahma present before him, sitting upon his swan. He offered prostrated obeisance to Lord Brahma and expressed his gratitude. The king of the demons stood with folded hands and with tears in his eyes and a choked voice. He offered prayers to Lord Brahma. Towards the end of his prayers, the demon asked Brahma to give him a boon that he will never die. Brahma replied, at one time, I myself will die. How then can I bless you not to die? Hiranyakashipu then asked for a boon that ensured he would not die inside or outside, during daytime or nighttime, that he would not die in the sky, nor on the earth, nor in the water, that he would not be killed by any weapon, nor any animal, and that he should not die at the hands of any living entity created by Brahma. He asked, please bless me that I will not die by any living entities, nor non-living entities. Bless me so that I will not die at the hands of any demigods, demons or snakes. No one can conquer you in battle or unconquerable. Please bless me that I too will not be conquered by anyone. Kindly give me full proprietorship over all living entities, including the controller of all planets. Please give me all mystic power, which will never be lost. In this way, the demon considered that he had indirectly asked to be immortal. Brahma, being pleased with Hiranyakashipu, said, although the boons you have asked for are very rarely attained, still I bless you that all of you desires of yours will be fulfilled. After blessing Hiranyakashipu this way, Brahma left. Hiranyakashipu watched Lord Brahma leave, then began to laugh loudly, saying, just see, Brahma said he could not grant me boon to be immortal, but I tricked him. The boon he gave me will indeed make me immortal. As there is no chance I can be killed in any way, as I have asked protection from all possibility of death. Thus the demon thought he had made a fool of Lord Brahma. This is the nature of demons. Though Hiranyakashipu was a devotee of Brahma and blessed by Brahma. Still behind Brahma's back, he was mocking Brahma. The demon Bhasmasura also behaved the same way. A devotee of Lord Shiva, he was blessed with the boon that anyone upon whom he rested his hand would turn to ashes. After receiving this boon from Shiva, Bhasmasur, doubting that Lord Shiva had actually empowered him, wanted to test whether the boon worked or not, but placing his hand on the head of Shiva. This is the nature of demonic mentality. Chapter 8. Hiranyakashipu terrorizes the universe. Hiranyakashipu conquered the whole universe. He conquered all types of living entities like demigods, human beings, Gandharvas, Garudas, the great serpents, the Siddhas, the Charnas, and Vidyadharas, the great sages and saintly persons, Yamraj, and other leaders of Pitas, all the different Manus, the Yakshas, the Rakshas, the leaders of the Pishachlok, the Pretas, along with their master, seizing their power and influence, he defeated everyone and brought them under his control. He lived in heaven, famous for its Nandan gardens, the place of entertainment for Devas. There he resided in the most opulent palace of Indra, the king of heaven. Srimad Bhagavatam describes in detail the beauty and opulence of Indra's palace. The steps of King Indra's residence were made of coral, and floor was bedecked with invaluable emeralds. The walls were of crystal and columns of Vedurya stone. The wonderful canopies were beautifully decorated. The seats were bedecked with rubies and silk bedding as white as foam was decorated with pearls. The ladies of the palace, who were blessed with beautiful teeth and the most wonderfully beautiful faces, walked here and there in the palace, their ankle bells tinkling melodiously, and saw their own beautiful reflections in the gems. The demigods, however, being very much oppressed, how to bow down and offer obeisance at the feet of Hiranyakashipu, who chastised the demigods, were prevalent for no reason. Thus Hiranyakashipu lived in the palace and severely ruled everyone. Hiranyakashipu engaged in drinking strong wine, and his copper-colored eyes were also rolling. In spite of this, and because of his severe austerity and yoga sadhana, he was extremely powerful. Because of this, even though he was abominable, still all the devas except Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu would come to worship him, carrying gifts in their hands. Hiranyakashipu, by his own prowess, occupied the throne of Indra, the king of heaven, and was controlling the citizens of other planets. Gandharvas like Vishwavasu, Tumbura, the Vidyadharas, and Apsaras, and all the great rishis would glorify him by offering prayers. While Narada Muni was relating this subject to Yudhishthira Maharaj, he said, "Even I was also glorifying him." Strict followers of Varnashram Dharma would perform sacrifice with many presentations and elaborate paraphernalia. Hiranyakashipu, instead of giving a share of the sacrifice to demigods, would enjoy it all himself. At that time, the earth, which consists of 7 islands, would produce varieties of crops without ploughing the land, just like Surbi or Kamdhenu in the spiritual world. Thus, the earth was producing abundant food and grain. Cows were giving lots of milk, and the whole sky was looking very beautiful. Different oceans of the universe would supply varieties of jewels and precious gems from rivers, who were like the wives of the ocean. These oceans were the salty ocean, the sugarcane ocean, the wine ocean, the ghee ocean, yogurt ocean, and sweet water ocean. Hiranyakashipu was using the valleys between mountains and as his playgrounds. By his influence, all trees and creepers were laden with plentiful fruits and flowers during all the seasons, and thus looking very beautiful. Rain, drying, and burning, all activities that were normally administered by their respective demigods like Indra, Vayu, and Agni Devta, were all controlled by Hiranyakashipu himself without taking any help from these demigods. Despite Hiranyakashipu being endowed with the power to control all direction and being engaged in extensive sense gratification, still he was not satisfied, because rather than controlling his senses, he was the servant of his senses. The demigods prayed to Lord Vishnu for help. Hiranyakashipu became very proud of his opulence. He did not follow any scriptural injunctions And in this way, a long period of his life passed. He tortured all the inhabitants of different planets along with their governors, Lokpalas. Finally, not seeing any other shelter, all the planets' rulers took shelter of Lord Vishnu. They looked towards the direction where the Supreme Personality of God had decided, from where purified souls never returned. The Lokpalas all offered their humble obeisances and worshipped Lord Rishikesh by controlling their minds fully, without any sleep and taking only air as their food. At one point, they could hear a sound vibration, a voice as grave as thunder and deep as the clouds. Hearing this sound, they felt inspired and fearless. The unseen voice said, "O demigods, do not fear. Let everything be auspicious unto you all. You all should become my devotees by hearing my glories and offering prayers unto me. In this way, all living entities will be benefited. I know that all the activities of Hiranyakashipu very soon, all his activities will come to an end. You please wait until that time. That person who becomes inimical to demigods, who are the representatives of gods, towards Vaishnavas, Dharma, and finally to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are doomed and will soon be destroyed. When Hiranyakashipu behaved violently towards his son Prahlad, who was no enemy, he is peaceful and self-controlled, and who is a great devotee, I will kill him despite the boon he has received from Lord Brahma. After hearing these words of pacification from the Lord, the demigods offered their humble obeisances and went back to their palaces, knowing that Hiranyakashipu would soon be killed. Chapter 9. Birth of Prahlad Maharaj. Hiranyakashipu, the father of Prahlad Maharaj, once went to Mandar Parvat to perform tapasya. Taking advantage of this absence, the Devas started a war against the Danavas. It was a very fearsome battle. The great commanders of the Danavas were killed one after another by the Devas. Seeing their leaders being killed in the battle, soldiers simply left the battlefield and were worried for their lives. They left behind their homes and families and ran away. The victorious Devas plundered the valuables from Hiranyakashipu's palace and destroyed everything else. Then Indra, king of the Devas, arrested Kayadhu, the wife of Hiranyakashipu, and was taking her away. Kayadhu was crying helplessly, and that time it happened that Narada Muni reached there and saw Kayadhu being taken. Narada Muni told Indra, "This lady is sinless. She has she has not committed any offense. It is not correct for you to take her like this in a very cruel way. See the wife of someone else. How can you take her like this? You must release her immediately." King Indra replied, "This lady is the wife of the great demon Hiranyakashipu. She is bearing the child of this great demon in her womb. We fear that when this child takes birth, he will also be a great demon. We want to kill him, but not while the baby is inside the womb of the mother. I will keep Kayadu under arrest until the baby's birth. After I will kill the child and then release Kayadu." Narmani said, "The baby inside the womb of this lady is sinless and faultless. Actually, this baby will be great devotee of the Lord. He is a great and powerful follower of the Lord. You cannot kill him." Hearing this from Devarsi Narad, Indra released Kayadu. Because Kayadu carried a great devotee of the Lord in her womb, all the Devas circumambulated Kayadu and then left for heaven. Devarsi Narad took Kayadu to his ashram. He promised Kayadu he would protect her in all respects. Narad Muni told her, "You will stay here in my ashram without any fear until your husband returns. I will take care of you nicely." Kayadu stayed under the care of Narad Muni until Hiranyakashipu completed his tapasya. While living in the ashram, Kayadu was engaged in serving Narad Muni, which she did with great devotion. During that period, Narad was giving talks about spiritual subject matters to Kayadu. Prahlad Maharaj in his mother's womb were also hearing this spiritual knowledge free from all material contaminations. In due course of time, Prahlad took birth. It has been said that Kayadu wanted to give birth to her child in the ashram of Narad Muni, and thus she stayed until Prahlad's birth. When Hiranyakashipu returned after completing his tapasya, Narad Muni delivered Kayadu and his son safely to him. When Prahlad grew up, he could remember all the knowledge imparted by Narad Muni by his causeless mercy. Chapter 10. Prahlad Maharaj in Gurukul. Sukracharya was the guru of all demons. He used to act as a prohit for all demons, especially for Hiranyakashipu. He had two sons named Sand and Ambark. Sand and Ambark. Sukracharya was out of his ashram for some period, and during that time, his both sons were educating Prahlad Maharaj about politics, economics, and so on. But Prahlad Maharaj had no interest in this type of education. Being a great devotee of the Lord, he was seeing everyone as equal. But as per the teachings of the politics, one has to accept some people as a friend, some as an enemy. Prahlad Maharaj did not like this kind of teachings. Once Hiranyakashipu placed his son Prahlad on his lap and very affectionately asked, "My dear son, please tell me what is the best thing you have learned?"
Yes, now. मेरे को 2-3 बजे दे देना प्लीज महाराज को चलना
हरे कृष्ण हरे कृष्ण
हरे कृष्ण
हरे हरे राम।
हरे कृष्ण
आरती कर ली हो गया जी सूची में। तुलसी महारानी
धोती.
Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Jai Sri Krishna Sasana Pavitram Shri Hare Rama Krishna Hare Krishna Jai Narasimha Sri Narasimha Jai Jai Sri Narasimha Ladesha Jai Padma Lakha Padma Gambhiram Naham Vishnu Jalantam Sarvadam Shivam Jai Sankara